So thanks guys for joining up. I won't take too long waiting for people to roll in. This is just the first one of these, so we're hanging, we're chatting. Um yeah, the rough sort of, I guess, agenda, at least that I had in my head, was honestly just go with what I know, which is like a corporate earnings call. For those of you that are familiar or have been on any of those, just kind of talking through, I don't know, the state of Thorhead, and then we can slowly let it devolve into, I don't know, whatever we want, as the Q&A leads later during our time. So um yeah, really, I'll start, I guess, while people are still, hopefully trickling in, but with a little bit of an intro on myself, since I don't know that I don't know, have done this very much, or at least made myself terribly public. My name is in real life Kyle. I have worked as a software engineer for a little over a decade now, in Web 2. I have been invested in VeChain since 2018. So the early Venn crew, when they were still on Ethereum, before the big cut over to their own network. And I've been kicking the tires in Web3 for um 3+ years now, really just wanting to understand the underlying technology and you know fuel sort of my curiosity for, okay, how does this work in real world applications? How does this work in kind of building a network of trustless authenticity in an era that is increasingly inauthentic, what with kind of AI slop being spewed out at an insane rate. um yeah, just kind of seeing what that looks like, seeing uh what it looks like to develop in that space, and hoping to contribute in the same way that it's like, in Web 2, using lots of open source libraries. I've used them, I've built them, I've maintained them. And so, hoping to sort of build that, and build tools that I can give back to the VeChain ecosystem. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. Yeah, just that's kind of a rough intro. I'll start from there. The typical, whatever shareholders meeting type thing, earnings call, is going through kind of a presentation of where we're at, and then a prospectus of like what the future looks like, ending with a little Q&A. So I'll yeah, if you guys are interested in that format, or if you're like, no, I got some burning questions, feel free to post them in the Discord channel, Thorhead Thursday. I got that pulled up on my other monitor here. So um, yeah, we'll keep on rolling unless there's any objections. But um, yeah, let's see. So kind of just since this is the first one, we'll keep we can iterate, same same with Thorhead. Kind of keep building, expanding, adjusting as we go. But I'll give a brief summary of where we're at so far. um just kind of starting from the maybe more fun aspects and working into the more technical. Starting with the fun stuff, the current highest rarity Thorhead, still the reigning champ, is 111 rarity. So holographic dreadlocks, which is pretty dope. Yeah, it was fun to see that one get called out in the Discord, and yeah, get to celebrate that one, with the posts and such. Yeah, uh the other, I'll say, like, metric that I have really enjoyed, and I've tweeted about this a little bit, but The other metric that I've really enjoyed is the number of unique addresses. And so that's, unique accounts uh, or wallets interacting with the Thorhead contract. Um, and so that to me is like, I'll say one of my, at least, again, to use the like more business term, KPIs, key performance indicators, where it's like, yeah, if I get more, I want to have more people engaging, both with VChain and with the contract. And so our current number of unique addresses, I checked, 15 minutes ago or so, is 7,335. Which, to put that number, in context, the total number of people who are NFT holders on VChain, which I also pulled the stats from VChain stats, uh, is 90, or a little over 90,000, 90,434. Um, and so where that puts us in terms of unique addresses is Thorhead is actually a little over 8% uh, of the total like unique NFT holders on VChain, which is, you know, while 8% may not sound like a lot in terms of like the breadth of the market, and, that 90,000 number, including all NFTs of previous, sort of like dead projects as well, like 8% is pretty nuts. It's like I haven't run the numbers on, sort of filtering down and refining the 90,000 down into like, well, what's the subset of uh, active projects versus, dead projects or whatever. So, I'll leave it at that sort of 8% current metric, which I think I may have even mentioned that yesterday in a post, but that number is increasing by about 150 addresses a day, give or take, which, I don't know that growth is necessarily sustainable, but uh, it's still pretty cool to see that it's continuing along that trend still, at least for a season. And, that will increase our sort of, market saturation, if you want to look at it, at that, with that metric, across the VChain ecosystem. So again, just kind of accomplishing some of the goals of Thorhead, which, for those that haven't read my blog post on it, I would highly encourage. I've done a decent amount of like thinking and writing to sort of codify the goals of the project as a whole, and solidify, kind of where we're going in the future, and what the sort of ethos behind prioritization is in that. So, yeah, I mean, that combined with, I think we're creeping up on, I said I'd have raw metrics. Yeah, we're creeping up on 70,000 total minted Thorheads, which also just blows my mind. Like, I understand that like the crypto space is fast moving, but the fact that it was, basically 2 months ago, that I, sort of push deploy and watch things go live, to now almost 70,000 mints is pretty wild. So, um, I mean, thanks to you guys for being along for the ride. And it's like, it's my goal to continue to add utility and functionality. And yeah, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, just kind of state of the union, that's a bit of where we're at. Like I said, current highest rarity is 111. Number of unique addresses is 7,335, as of 15 minutes ago, interacting with the Thorhead contract, which is pretty sweet. So, yeah, a little bit about me. That's a bit of where we're at. And then, in terms of like prospectus and future excitement, I think this will kind of lead into sort of the Q&A segment. because a lot of this is open ended and yet to be deployed, whether on VChain's end or on Thorhead's side of things. So um, yeah, we'll dive right into that. For those that don't know, which if you're on this call, you probably do know, the VChain renaissance is underway. And I have looked through, or I've read all of the posts, kind of I'm pretty active in like the VChain Energy Discord and VChain Stats Discord, and have some meetings set up with a number of other members in the sort of VChain development team to chat with them about implementation details of the sort of upcoming tech of VChain Renaissance, which I'm super excited about. I think it's a must needed shift from where we've been, and at least the shift from the goals of uh, sort of what hasn't been working. And it's actually this shift is one of the reasons that I was excited about VChain from the beginning and still am, is the fact that we as a network do have the ability to make these changes. The two token model is integral for that. Without that, we'd be stuck. Vet would, it's the nature of blockchain. Vet would be this immutable entity on the network that we could not alter in any way. But because Thor is a contract, with sort of the mechanisms in place to sort of adjust all of the dials as necessary, it gives us the flexibility to make these changes and sort of meet and rise to market demands, which, yeah, again, super excited about that. But I'll dive into the VChain Renaissance specifics that like have me the most excited, and then we can kind of open it up to Q&A from there. So from a financial like math perspective, the post talking about like the tokenomics of Thor and the potential staking and lockup of VChain, I think most people don't have their head wrapped around how crazy that will be. So like people, those concerned about like, well, what about the number of lower tier economic nodes? How many of those are available? What if they don't get used? What if whatever? And I think the ceiling is more of the focus, where it's like, well, those all being used and getting that sort of APY yield will lead to 70% of the total supply of vet being locked up, being staked in those contracts, which it, and that's 70 billion, or sorry, 60 billion of the total circulating supply of VChain, which is crazy. The having that staked, I think, would lead to I haven't done all of the math on it, but would lead to such an insane run in terms of the like what is available on Coinbase. And my for context, I'm based in the US. I do most of my like crypto interaction via Coinbase, and so based on the circulating supply, it's like we would be pushing well over $1, back of the napkin math on VChain supply. Granted, if we hit that 60 billion lockup threshold. So anyway, that's the like math side of things that I'm super excited about, which is more just like, oh, fun numbers, green candles, stuff goes up into the right, which is fun and all. But for me personally, it's like I have a day job as a software engineer. I am paid very fairly, so the like financial piece is not so much of a driver for me. It's like, obviously I need to put food on the table and support my family, but the tech side is really what like revs my engine. So the EVM upgrades, I haven't dove into those, like the future sort of like past Shanghai for the Ethereum virtual machine. I haven't fully dug into that. I know that there's some gas fee optimizations, but again, it's like I haven't like actually combed through the like bytecode to fully understand that. The piece that is really massive, I think, for Thorhead, for VeChain, for the ecosystem as a whole, is the JSON RPC additions. For those that have been around and minting Thorhead for a while, you have probably experienced, a couple, we'll call them missed Thorheads, where the NFT gets minted to VeChain, but the image does not show up immediately, and that's because basically on the back end, I am working around the lack of JSON RPC support from a VeChain perspective. So I'm using the VeChain Energy Toolkit to issue webhooks based on chain events, and it's like this weird triangle of communication errors or potential communication errors. And so I when they announced that, it's like I was over the moon, because it's like now my servers can directly interface with uh the VeChain blockchain, or at the very least like a validator node. And so that to me will be a major sort of platform solidifying element that comes out of the VeChain renaissance. The other sort of elements of the tech side of things, it's like bridges, stable coins. Obviously, we've wanted a stable coin for a very, very long time. Um, but to me, those are all, I'll say, secondary, like super nice, but secondary to some of the foundational tech sort of wirings, because as soon as you have those in place, you have developers like myself or like others who can go and build sort of creative solutions to these things that may not exist. I think a lot of people look to what is currently here, but I think with Thorhead and with the future of VeChain, it's like, in my head at least, it's like, okay, what sort of, not what is here currently, but like where are the gaps in the market 6 months, a year from now, that will lead to a solidification of VeChain as one of the like top tier layer one technology platforms. I honestly hesitate to even call it a cryptocurrency. um to me, that's like calling email the internet. It's like, well, yeah, the email happens over the internet, but it's not the whole internet. It's not like the entire thing. And so for us, as sort of the VeChain ecosystem, it's like having those technical underpinnings allowing us uh uh, to build creative solutions that don't exist. It's like those interfacing with via email in 1998 or whatever. We're not thinking of live streaming or Twitter Spaces or whatever at that time. It was like, oh, cool, like this replaces fax. Um, and maybe I'm just dating myself. Maybe that's I sound like an old man shaking my fist at the sky, but uh yeah, anyway, I could talk for way too long on the tech side of things, but yeah, those are a couple of things that I'm really excited about. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of future development that there was a whole VeChain blog post for was the VeChain kit, and really sort of circling the wagons around VeChain, like the developer assistance for the initial touch point of creating a wallet or creating an account. I think as I look towards the future and interact with people who are so new to the crypto space, definitely not, I'll say, like Twitter or chronically online friends of mine. It's like what the heck is a wallet? Why do I need this address? What does this mean? Like, what's this, what's a passphrase? And so having the VeChain kit as a tool in the tool belt to give people a sort of low barrier to entry, but then still having the security that VeChain provides is, to me, man, that's also just jet fuel in the engine for real world adoption. So uh yeah, really the like financial math of potential 70% lockup, the tech centered around JSON RPC, and then VeChain kit for the like end user quality of life things are like the three pillars that, one, I'm looking forward to implementing, and interacting with, but then also yeah, just for the future, it's like, man, I'm so excited for what's to come. So um yeah, I will say, here's my disclaimer. I don't want to be all hype and sunshine and rainbows all the time. I think you want to take an objective approach when looking at these things. Future uncertainty directly as it relates to Thorhead for me is the variable gas fees that will be coming to VeChain. There isn't a ton of like hard and fast news on that yet. But looking at, sort of other networks that have modeled that uh, in their sort of the baked in essence of their network, it's like you can get a lot of friction from, I'll say, larger businesses who want a high degree of certainty when they are writing data or when they're deploying contract, or if they're like, yeah, we need to deploy contracts with every block, can we be certain about our cost as it relates to that? It's hard to communicate. It's hard to sit down with an enterprise client like that and say, yeah, we don't know how much this is going to cost. Like that instills so much doubt, that it's like, okay, that was one of the big question marks for me personally, reading through these the posts as they have been on the future of VeChain. So, not saying that variable gas fees are a bad thing. I'm just curious about how well they will be executed. So, yeah, again, just I like to play my own devil's advocate at times, thinking about, well, like, what would a person who holds the opposite opinion say, and try and, make sure my logic is airtight. So I definitely am not opposed to naysayers, and, like, let's we can crap on NFTs if you need to, if you need to air your grievances. But yeah, so all that to say, I think let's maybe open it up to a little Q&A. I don't know if I have the settings set properly. This is, I'm really cutting my teeth on the Twitter space stuff here, but yeah, I think if you guys have any questions for me about, I mean, heck, VeChain, uh, Thor as a concept, Thor heads, generally, I will talk a little bit about future plans. Not, I'll try not to disclose too much, but sort of what's on the horizon for Thorhead as a project, and then yeah, VeChain in general. So that was a lot of words. If you guys have any questions, or if you want to, maybe not speak, then, if you're not in a position to talk, you're welcome to, like I said at the beginning, post them in the Thorhead Discord, the Thorhead Thursday Discord channel, or yeah, just holler at me now, and we can chat. Oh, maybe. Hang on. It says request to speak. Approve. I think I let everyone be a speaker. So maybe that's, too much anarchy for the internet, um but yeah. Any questions? Oh,
I definitely want to hear y'all talk and ask questions. I'm eating a chili dog right now, so I'm gonna get on the back
oh
burner.
yeah, it's all good. I honestly, I'm stoked to see y'all here. This like the bringing the community together and chatting about again all the nerdy stuff is a blast for me. So I really I'm an open book too. Like the tech behind Thorhead, what makes it operate. Like y'all are, I can chat about that if you want to know more about that. eh, you know, I've seen some crazy conspiracy theories about the randomness of Thorhead, and it honestly is hilarious for me as the developer because it's like it really is not there. I wish I put as much thought into the development of it as you guys put into the conspiracy theories because man, yeah, there is no time of day that will give you a betterment. There is no it does not depend on the cycle or the phase of the moon. Um it is just randomness, which uh yeah, is pretty wild. Uh in that it's purely random. So, yeah. Alex, I saw your request. You are a speaker. Hmm? I clicked on the follow back button as well. I don't know that. Oh, maybe. I don't know if everyone's muted or is the issue on my end. Technology is
Oh,
I
hard.
can hear you.
Oh, there we go.
people are gathering themselves.
Yeah.
I'm just no, I'm on a space. I'm on a space. Yes. I'm sweeping. I'm doing a
Mom, not
job.
now.
Kyle, are you sure that there
Sorry,
is no
I was
correlation
getting.
between time of mint and rarity? I'm
I
not
No,
sure,
no, no.
maybe,
I
man. I
honestly,
don't know.
I
I've got my
the
headphones on.
I'm gonna say, all right, my odds have
It's
been
all good.
better at odd hours of the day.
that is hilarious. I mean, it is honestly it's funny to me. It like highlights the um I don't know. There's a great book by the guy named Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a tough book for me to recommend because it reads like a textbook, but it talks about how like we as humans we are pattern matching creatures. It's like we constantly do pattern recognition, and so if you run into the same thing multiple times, even if it is pure chaos, pure chance, that will start to correlate, and then that lands us into the like confirmation bias pretty quickly. And so you know I don't know, like, honestly, I would open source what I have and post all the source code, if it wasn't so convoluted and would bring shame to my family. um it really is just like I've mentioned it in a couple blog posts, but it is the oh, hang on one second. Oh, there we go. It is just the so like the entire backend is built in Elixir, and the through that I can leverage the Erlang virtual machine and use the rand module to basically generate a random number in a given range. And it's just that it's saying like, okay, pick a number between 1 and 2 to the 12, 1 in 4096, like. And if that number is 1, great. Your Thorhead is now holographic. Like, that is the code. It is not, go and check all these APIs for moon cycles and whatever. Like, there is no complexity. There is no, way around that amount of, pure chaos. So, yeah, that's the long and short of that.
I got another more serious question in that.
Yeah.
So future plans.
Yeah.
What's the word on the give and get
Yep.
and staking? And if you could go in a little bit more detail on, like, I guess, about the staking itself, where's it going to be, what's it going to do, all that
Totally.
stuff.
Yeah. So I was actually chatting this morning with the World of V team, and it will definitely be on World of V. I think I'll say the trickier elements to it are the fact that I mean, Thorhead is doing so many things that are, I'll say, counter to the standard NFT process. So, for example, having an unlimited mint, the World of V systems are set up for a fixed supply, sort of minting pool, which, that's no fault of them. Like, that is how the space has been for the last, what, 5 years. So it makes sense that you would sort of, optimize your contracts and your infrastructure around that concept. But then, when a new NFT comes along and wants to do things differently, it's like, I feel bad for the World of V team, because I've been asking lots of questions where it's like, well, we can't really do that. And it's like, that makes sense. How can I, like, basically make it so that the Thorhead sort of contracts play as nicely as possible with the World of V infrastructure? And so in that, talking about staking, there are still a couple technical hurdles to overcome. For example, it's like, I need to basically build a custom staking pool that allows World of V to interface with it directly, so that it can be distributed in accordance with rarity. So you all know, maybe this is more of the technical detail of things. The plan at this point is, in terms of staking, is to uh, pay out staking rewards proportional to rarity. So the rarer the Thorhead, the more the more World of V you will get. I don't have hard and fast numbers on all of that right now, but the the staking floor currently is 20 rarity. So basically, every point over 19 rarity, so that's 20 equals basically one staking point. Every point over 20 rarity will get you one one unit. It's hard speaking in such abstract terms, but, like, get you 1 unit of the staking pool. And then, basically at the end of every staking period, you'll sum up all of the total units in the pool and then distribute based on your percentage of the pool. So, that's I'll say relatively standard staking procedure. Just the added complexity of potentially infinite amount, of Thorheads in that pool, to uh, sort of the rarity side of things being the determining factor, and not a hard coded, ranking or a fixed supply. Yeah, really is the complexity. So I'll be
Part of
spending
it
some time to
is
build all that out. But
part of your issue too is that for the most part, smart contracts don't read metadata, right? So
Yeah, that is definitely a large piece of complexity. One that I've at least overcome to this point by
right,
actually just writing chunks of the metadata to individual contracts. So, for example, there is
that makes
a
sense.
I don't know what I called it, but like a rarity. Oh yeah, rarity registry. Basically, where it's like, so every time a mint, happens, I also write the rarity of that mint to this rarity registry. So the
So you have a separate contract that's just dealing with the registry. I like that.
yeah,
That
so
makes sense.
that way, if, for example, if somebody wants to interface with Thorhead, I could just point him to that contract and say, hey, you can look up, based on the token ID, you can look up the rarity of a given Thorhead without having to directly interface with my servers, having like me to stand up an API and all of the sort of technical weight that comes with that. That's one of the things that
Yeah,
I
that
yeah.
I'm glad you said that because that actually solves a problem for us as well. Like because I just keep getting told, oh, smart contract can't read the metadata, which means like you can't differentiate between said trait or that trait or this, and I'm like, why? But we want to, so
Yeah.
this actually makes sense. You're indexing the entire rarity um, of all the unit ID. You're basically linking the unit ID with an index of all of the traits, which
Yep.
makes sense.
Yeah, and ideally, this is where for those that are really deep in the weeds here, ideally I would love to just store all of the metadata in a serialized manner, like via data URLs in the contract itself. And I actually have a VIP VChain improvement proposal open for adopting that in the VChain network as a means of basically allowing us to shift as much data storage and retrieval onto the network as possible. That's something that for me, it's like, well, I honestly, I understand and appreciate the critique of blockchains as, it's like, well, it's this big, slow database. And it's like, well, yes, but I mean, I think that's generally true at a very core level, but I think we can leverage that. We can leverage that as an ecosystem to say, um, build these write once, or like, which may be slow initially, slow in terms of the internet, but write once APIs that allow us to then query that data in a very quick manner and in a way that is mathematically provable and globally persistent. Which are two very uh, expensive challenges for the sort of global internet to solve. And so that's where that's been my workaround. I don't know that it's necessarily right, and it's easy. I'll say easier to do with a number than necessarily like strings of text that maybe describe a trait or something like that. But yeah, so I've taken, again, just kind of the simplest route to to get data to where I want it to go eventually, uh, as sort of we build out and as the VeChain renaissance continues, because I think there will be future opportunities for again adding data. And I will say the other thing to writing all of that data, potentially to separate contracts or to one big contract, is it comes at a cost. It's like the Thor burn increases, I'll say significantly, the more sort of attributes and vectors you have that you would like to write to the blockchain. And so it's not without consideration that you can just be like, yeah, I'm just going to dump all this data onto the blockchain. It's like, and that's part of why even in this, it's like I wanted to use Thor as the minting token, because then it would basically enable me to have, excuse me, sorry, it would enable me to have sort of bank of like, yeah, if I need to go and write 300,000 transactions logging data for every Thorhead in existence, it's like, well, it's like I got, 100,000, 200,000 Thor that I can just burn through. And do it in, a handful of transactions, because that's one of the cool things about VeChain. So, it's those are kind of the disclaimers to, it's like, yeah, here's how I've solved the problem, but I don't know that that is necessarily the best solution for every project that's out there. Yeah, go for it, Saga. Sorry, I muted because
Yeah, no,
there was noise on the mic, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. I'm just trying to rush around and there's a bunch of people at work here. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that makes total sense. And, I recognize a similar thing that if we were going to do what we were going to do, we had to break up the contracts and basically make individual contracts for each one so that things don't get super slow. So, yeah, I mean, most of everything you're saying makes sense in the idea, like, if you're looking at sort of VIP storage, like data storage and recall and stuff like that, if you make your contract too complex, it'll take too long for it to go through and find the information it needs, right? So yeah, it seems like you've come up with some innovative ways to figure out your system, and it sounds like you're doing things different, which is very cool too.
Thanks. Yeah, no, and that like I said, really it's like the goal in all of this is to get more people interacting and engaging with the blockchain as a whole. And so even in this, it's like, I think, the sort of the whole Thorhead project is collectively about 7 different contracts, all just interacting with each other at this point. Which has a Thor cost and is honestly a product of my own sort of like learning as I've built it out. Yeah, I'll say my big piece of learning is like, make sure you have access controls on all of your contracts, because it has gotten me out of a jam when it's like, oh crap, I forgot to add that to the contract and I forgot to make it a upgradable one. And that's like I said, my own learning in real time. But the nice thing is with VeChain, contracts are relatively cheap to deploy. It's like I'm not breaking the bank to deploy a contract for 10 Thor. Again, just one of the other, like, I'm not trying to glaze VeChain, but one of the other big differentiators that I'm a big fan of. So, oh yeah, we were talking about sorry, that's, I guess, we're fine with rabbit holes here. That's a little bit of the nutshell around staking and some of the sort of planned mechanisms therein. It's like I think for those that may have joined late, you're welcome to listen to the recording. I went in a bit on staking and what the sort of finer points of the details should look like. I always want to throw the asterisk of like, I still need to do some of the math to make sure that for example, it's like in those 20 plus, like if you are statistically above 20 plus rarity, do I have enough Thor to purchase the World of V to pay out the staking pool? Because I mean, that's putting it crassly, but it's like, I want to make sure that the maths along the way, and that people are getting rewarded for their participation. So yeah, it again, one of the other things is, it's like I'm not exactly making a ton of money with this, and that's really not my goal. It's like my goal is to like incentivize interaction. So whatever Thor is coming in has a 99% chance of being burned to fuel future functionality. So for those of you that may have questions about that, and also it's all on the blockchain. You're welcome to look at the contract. I have it all at I bought the vet domain thorhead.vet, so you're welcome to poke around there on VeChain stats. I don't know if you're nerdy like that. I love doing that, but yeah. So yeah, that was staking. Anyone else have any other kind of general questions on that? I'm happy to answer. If not, I can.
I'm about to get in an elevator. As soon as I get out, I'll chime back in, but it is regarding staking.
Yeah. I think after after that, I'm happy to talk about sort of the give Thorhead, get Thorhead concept. I'll to put it briefly, I'll call it referrals, because in essence that's what it is. But conceptually, it serves to sort of stimulate further engagement and having people like, oh hey, I got a thing in my wallet. The NFTs tab in V World is no longer empty. I have a thing I can look at, and what does it mean? What happens if I send it? Stuff like that. That really ties back into the sort of like providing low cost educational experiences and potentially a first touch point for people with VeChain and the VeChain ecosystem. So I can talk about the finer points of that after we hear from Steve on the staking questions.
Yeah, it's more of a question that at first when I first brought it up in Discord, I was just wondering out of pure greed. I know that projects that do allow staking for World of V tokens, I know that supports World of V. It also increases the price of whatever that project is. But in keeping with minting with Vito on chain, doing all that kind of stuff, do you see any kind of a future where it's more in-house, where the pool that you're staking is funded by the minting process, to where it's
Definitely.
more of a Vito return rather than a World of V return?
Yeah, I think I could see. Honestly, I'll say I'll put it the other way. I could see a world where you could use World of V to mint Thorhead. Because it's all a contract. It's all ERC20 tokens, or I mean, I haven't talked with the World of V team about exactly how they've implemented it, but there's an interface. And currently, I think World of V token is about the same price as like the same USD cost as Thor. So, 100 World of V to mint doesn't sound too bad either, especially if you're getting paid out that way. Really, like my leaning that direction is honestly just because the World of V team has been so insanely accommodating in getting this project off the ground and getting it listed and helping just helping me with some of the dumb mistakes I've made early on, and helping get it all ironed out for them in the future. So yeah, I think that's possible. It's like, I think with smart contracts, there's also, it's like, hey, what would you like your rewards paid out in? And we could exchange for whatever token. Yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities for like I said, kind of some of those details to get ironed out. I think from the jump, it will likely be World of V being paid out, but I don't see that as like a limiting element, at least initially, because it'll all be, yeah. I don't see it as a limiting element initially.
Gotcha. And at any point in time, does that become, let's just say the scenario where the staking pool is based off of the volume being minted. Does that at any point in time come anywhere close to Ponzi scheme, or is there ways
Yeah.
around it to prevent that?
No, I think that's honestly, I that is a good call out and a good point. I haven't fully run the math on staking. I've been primarily focused on the referral side of things. Just because again that drives sort of the core ethos of broadening the engagement. That's a good point. I honestly, I will have to figure that out. And I say, let's maybe come back next week or discuss further when when I have a calculator up in front of me, um, in terms of how that'll work out. I think there is a world in which the generated Thor of a pool could basically be self-sustaining, to where it is not a direct, like you're saying, where you're relying on the deposits of others to
Right.
to pay out the sort of top tier. They're basically the people who were bought in first. So yeah, that is, I
Right.
mean,
Right.
that is a great call out, a totally legitimate concern. I honestly, I hadn't even thought about it in that light. Really, staking, like I said, was kind of low on my initial priority list just because it feels like, to me at least, looking at it from a non sort of crypto native perspective, it feels like uh it feels funny, where it's like it feels strange, as in like, well, staking, what does that mean? Like, why would I do that? I want to have my thing. It's kind of the non crypto native perspective. And so that yeah, I say that as in like, it's a big question mark, and honestly something I'll have to think about, because I
Right.
don't want it to be, I don't know, slimy or Ponzi-y. Like, yeah.
All right. And last question. So with it being totally random, that
Mhm.
means that at any moment someone could mint the 221 at any
Y-
moment.
that
But
is true.
is there any math around how long it should take for that one to pop up, or is the math literally right now or 30 years from now?
There is no, I mean, again, we were talking about this towards the beginning of the call. There is no element, like, this is a core tenet of randomness. It
Right.
could happen tomorrow, totally. But like, all you can go on is like the statistical probability of it happening, similar to like
Hmm.
the fact that, like, a deck of cards, for example, 52 factorial, you could have every person on earth shuffling a deck for their entire lives and never get a duplicate sequence in that deck. And it's something crazy like 8 billion years they would have to shuffle before statistically you had two decks in the same order. um just because you're comparing each attribute, basically each attribute, if you look at it as 52 attributes of a deck, you're comparing each attribute to each other attribute. And it wouldn't happen like that. And so, while Thorheads has a limited or a more limited number of attributes than 52, you run into the same sort of scale of randomness, where I think I put it in the Discord as impossible adjacent, where it's like, statistically it is so unlikely. You're more likely to get bit by a shark 3 days in a row than mint the 221. there's like so many things that are more likely to happen to sort of put it into context.
Right.
I would say if let's let me do some math here. If we minted at our current rate, which is about 5,000 mints a day currently. I should have put that in our like summary of statistics. Yeah, we're averaging about 5,000 mints a day. Just fun fact.
Congratulations on that.
Thanks. Yeah, no, it's super fun.
Big.
Yeah, it's a interesting like technical challenge like I had expressed during the sort of JSON RPC excitement. I'm looking forward to that and being able to sort of more directly control the flow of data. But sorry, I digress. The if we're doing 5,000 mints a day, let's see, and the number that I did for the 220 was about 8 times 10 to the there's 18, 19 digits in that number. I mean, it's something on the order of like if again, if my math is correct, y'all can check me on this, but it would be like 8 million years before we would hit a 50% chance of that 221 coming up. So, and that's at just a 50% chance, so it's like, yeah, it might happen before then, there's a 50% chance it might, but there's also a 50% chance that it would take another 8 million years. So, again, like, could it happen tomorrow? Yes. Is it like,
I think that's what
we
I think that's what's got us all here.
yeah, it could also, we could also be, I don't know, hit by a meteor and a world-ending meteor, and like, yeah, those might honestly be on the same order of statistical likelihood. So, you know, I don't know, that's like the long answer to that question of, yeah, exactly what Coob said in the Discord. So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah.
I just thought that's just kind of how I was thinking about it.
Oh, exactly. It's like it's the whole like scientific answer of like, I can't say no because it's not zero. I also like struggle saying yes because it's so close to zero that it's effectively zero.
It's like a hair's breadth away from zero.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh,
And
hairs
part of
are,
this is,
yeah.
I think part of the confusion lays in the way that you develop this art in the first place, which is what's interesting me. Like, I'm less interested in the rarities and things like that, more interested in the SVG format
Yeah.
itself. And because it's like saying that if you went to a poker table and they had an infinite number of decks of cards, it's impossible to say how many, like statistically, how much odds there are, because the unit IDs aren't out yet.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So essentially, because you're generating on the fly, it basically creates true randomness, which is
Hmm.
really cool. Like, I think that's one of the coolest things that you've discovered with the way that you've developed this in the first place. And the idea that SVG is just such a light format
Yep.
means that indexing and all this kind of stuff is fairly easy, as far as cost is concerned. So yeah, I think there's some nuances, like, so you're setting each trait as a pathway, right? Or a path, or like, how are
Oh, yes.
you
I see what you're asking. Sorry. Yeah. As an SVG path. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Honestly, that
so
was,
that path is actually a trait.
yeah.
So like, each pathway you've given a percentage, and you have, depending on how many different paths you have that the random generator can pick from, will vary how much. Whereas in a standard collection, you're dealing with, say, 10K, 5K, whatever. And so you can easily get the statistical number of what are the odds that you're going to pull from the mint this particular NFT. Whereas you don't know what NFTs are going to be generated because they haven't been generated yet, which is super brilliant. It must feel a little odd when asked questions because it's like you you've created an engine where you literally can't tamper with it. You know what I mean? Like you can't just pick out
Yeah.
the super high rare one and airdrop it to somebody and be like, haha, there you go. You know, you've got the good
Yeah.
one. You know what
No,
I mean? Like,
and that's honestly, it's been so much fun to see combinations of like colors that I didn't even think to put together when I was, because like you're saying, it's like I just sort of built the uh okay, we're gonna draw, in SVG terms, it's like we're gonna draw a path here based on these attributes. And so it's like, well, if it's Thorhead of 5 height with a beanie on, it's like we need to draw a path that looks like this. But then the colors of that path and the, sort of all the different combinations around that, I didn't walk through all those combinations because I'd be still sitting here walking through all those combinations if I did. And so that's the sort of like emergent piece that has been a blast for me to see uh all of the new ones. Like somebody, I think there was a recent one that sold that was like a black bike helmet, but the secondary color was they rolled rainbow. And so it was like this black bike helmet with a rainbow infill. And I was like, I didn't even think about the secondary color being, a gradient like that. But I put the pieces in place. And so it works and is aesthetically cohesive. And so, yeah, anyway, it's like the emergent sort of design of it has been super fun to see. uh People,
so
honestly, it
did,
feels like they're being creative more than I am.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, when I was working on the engine for, like just to toy around with SVG, I realized really quickly, like if you're using a fill and like an outside or an outline or something like that, um, or you're using stacked colored layers, that you actually have to think about it. So like you don't want black on black or you won't see anything. It'll be like a
Yep,
blacked out image or whatever. So there's definitely nuances to developing in SVG in this way. Whereas, like when you're developing an engine, it's just, uh, like the typical, output engine. Um, you can kind of run it and see, oh, wait, those traits don't work together, this, that. And you can kind of govern, when certain traits will show up and when they won't,
yeah,
based on those kind of things, right? Where when you're dealing with true randomness, you actually kind of have to think about the implication of that in essence, like how are these traits going to conflict? So
totally.
SVG kind of makes you think in a very simple way,
Hmm.
and color becomes very important, color theory and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's so much range, right? But one question I'm wondering is, did you just use the color codex for your path, or did you actually like give it a ID, like a path ID to be able to reference the individual color? Like, did you name your halo colors and all that kind of stuff, your gradients and all that? Or did
um
you just leave it as a gradient fill? You must have,
that
you would have to actually name the ID of the path, right?
yeah, that not that there really is any, I'll say, much secret sauce to any of this, but um the layering of programmatically building a cohesive SVG is complex, like you're talking about, where it's like, okay, I have to have a bunch of conditionals for if it's a grade, if it has a gradient, I need to put that gradient in the definitions before it's being, before it's generated, so that then I tie the use tag to that gradient with a unique ID, which conveniently is the token ID, to the token ID, so that the use tag references that, gradient fill or like a mask or, whatever. And so there's, I won't get too into the like implementation weeds on a call like this, because it's hard to talk abstractly about stuff where it's like I can't just like show lines of code. But yes, you're touching on the complexity of building with SVG. One of the other things that honestly, and this is maybe just more of a personal ethos thing that I love about SVG, is it's something that AI doesn't do well. AI doesn't do hard lines well. AI doesn't do sort of this like knowledge of the complete work as a whole, with respect to images. And so having something that is like, granted, I'll,
Well, it's
take a step back. It
essentially
is just a silly picture of a dude's noggin. But at the same time, it's something that it's like, yeah, if you told AI to generate that, it would look vastly different from what
it
we have.
would, because basically it's like in the music industry, going from analog to digital, right? SVG is a scalable vector format,
Yep.
meaning that each pathway is defined by its outer edge, and AI uses RBG canvas to fill pixels to generate its image. So yes, absolutely, AI basically can mimic SVG format file, but it can't literally do a scalable vector format as it stands right now,
Yeah.
because of the nuance that you just described.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. No,
it's
and
like why logos they look like a one-off. You don't have a scalable vector logo,
yep.
which basically, if somebody were to say, "Oh, I've gotten this already a bunch," where somebody wants a logo done and they go, "I did this in AI. It's example of what I want. Can you just make that into a logo?" And it's like, well, technically I can, but I have to break down that entire image, like deconstruct it and then reconstruct it in Illustrator, in a proper SVG software.
Well, so you want to know a funny story? That is actually how Thorheads came to be. So, I contracted with a guy to do the original art because I am a software engineer, not an artist. Not even a very great UX UI designer. So, apologies for that. But he delivered all of the art to me in Photoshop documents, basically as raw pixels and not in a scalable vector format. So I ended up having to build a workflow to properly, like, effectively programmatically trace and export all of these different attributes that uh, the artist had drawn up for me. So
The image trace is great in
yeah.
Illustrator,
Yeah.
to a certain level, and then if
And
an
then it
image
took lots of
is too
refinement from there.
if it's too complex, like, well, and the thing is too, in RBG format, it's a round, like a whole bunch of round square pixels,
Yeah.
and SVG is, it's a different format altogether. So
Yep.
like,
Exactly.
as soon as you do the image trace, it basically has these, like, the sewing scissors that have like the funny teeth on them that do the
Yes. Yeah. You get the stair
mountain,
stepping
the
from
stair
it trying
stepping,
to outline the
exactly.
pixels. Yeah.
And anybody, like, to the average person who's looking at an image, they may not see it, but for artists or people that look at stuff, we zoom in and we can see that.
Yeah.
You can see the lines. It just looks horrible. You know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
and so the reason why this is important is if people were to want to say, for instance, take their Thorhead and print it's going to come out sharp no matter what size that
Yeah, you could theoretically print it, the entire side of a building,
you
and
could do billboard size, exactly.
yeah, yep,
and also, SVG format is more printers just understand it better.
hmm
Whereas, you know, you're always going to have pixelation and stuff like that when you're dealing with Photoshop images.
yeah,
And especially if they send it to you in like 72 dpi, oh, like the colors look different in print and all this stuff. This is why, because SVG deals with print format and is made for printing. And,
yeah,
Photoshop and photo display and stuff like that is all for monitors, and monitors max out at 70 dpi, and there's nothing you can do to get around that bottleneck, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, SVG, honestly, it was, I mean, it really stemmed, the choice of use of that technology stemmed from me wanting to really write all of the data to the blockchain. You can actually do a URL safe data URL encoding of a full SVG. My initial goal, or I mean, it's still kind of my goal, but one of my initial thoughts was, hey, when I am going to mint the entirety of the baked in SVG to the blockchain. It's a really long string, but I want to mint as much data as I can to the blockchain. It's like, I don't want to have to worry about a global CDN. I don't want to have to worry about, sort of the uptime of that, but I'd rather pay, and admittedly what would be a way higher upfront cost in terms of Thor burned for the compute of writing that data. I would have to pay a way higher upfront cost in order to do that. But I was like, I did, again, some tests, and that's part of the reason where I landed on 100 Thor, because it was like, oh, that should be about enough to write the full SVG data in contract form to the blockchain. And so, again, I have the VIP out to sort of have a display of intentionality of moving that direction for data storage. I don't know that it entirely aligns with the goals of VeChain, so I'm totally open to feedback on that, because one of the blog posts mentions sort of cross chain sorry about that, cross chain integrations, linking IPFS, the interplanetary file system stuff at a more native first party level. And while I get it from a tech perspective, for me, looking at it from a business enterprise perspective, I lean more in the camp of give me the thing that I can write once and I'm willing to pay a premium for that, versus having to orchestrate this sort of symphony of interconnected systems that may have network latency, that may have various levels of uptime, sort of like the microservice architecture of the 2010s, if for the web 2 devs out there. To me, that you just end up with very rapidly a massive amount of complexity, where enterprises don't necessarily want that. Well, they don't want that. They want simplicity, and they will pay a premium for that, sort of a la carte simplicity. And this is, again, more of a proof of concept of hey, can I do that in this context? Can I prove these tech concepts in a fun and engaging way? Because it's yeah, now people can dig into the SVG that's generated. People can dig into the randomness and statistical probability. It's there's depth there. But at the end of the day, it's, again, I don't want to take myself too seriously, where it's it is just a funny picture of a guy's noggin. But there's also a lot of I'll say thoughtfulness and stuff behind it.
There's huge implications, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
This is just a funny little image, but SVG can output all kinds of things. Like the idea that the
Oh, I think we might have lost him. Is that on my end, or am I?
No, I lost him too.
Okay, all right. Thank you for sanity checking. Yeah, I think.
for instance,
Well, if we get him back, hello, maybe
your ID is immutable on chain. From that point on, you can't change it. It's in your wallet. It was generated by the motor vehicle branch or whatever. Things like that. We have to explore and try out ideas as artists, as creatives, so that others can see the example.
Yeah, totally, for sure. No, and that like, we're getting here up on time, so I'll shut up and we can all go back about our work days here. But yeah, we'll save the referrals discussion maybe for next Thursday, because we're at about time here. Yeah, I think there's this is the first of hopefully many more. Y'all can think about your questions. Let me know. Post them in the Discord too. That's probably where you'll get a more, I'll say, like detailed specific response. And if we want to talk about it in person, we can do that here. So yeah, we'll do I guess I see a couple people with hands raised. Data, if you want to chat, we can chat and then call it quits for the day.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I love the project, love the ideas of it. Couple things I've played around with in the past, I've never really deployed. But just some thoughts is one of the fun contract things which you may like is I've made a contract which I think would work really well with your stuff, where it just unnecessarily burns Vita. Like it when you do something, it fire which actually is kind of trolling, but it fires off like 2,000 events in the signing. So it just like checks, it puts it in a loop and it says, do you have gas left? Yep, fire event. Do you have gas left? Yep, fire event. Which is fun. And so you just constantly, the person who ever signs it is going to essentially max out the block.
Yeah.
Which is really going to be weird once the dynamic fees come into play, because then it could get really crazy. And also the SVG, like I love the idea of having metadata directly saved into the NFT contract and then using that to layer in your URI to make your image to have all that directly on chain that you can call through different extension functions to an ERC 721. I think that's awesome and fun, and would ideally be the way to do things, even though it's more difficult from a developer side.
Yeah, and that's the goal. It's we're working there, but part of why I am so long on VeChain is it's like, yeah, we're taking those steps. It's like I'm here for the tech. I think we're moving in the right direction. And I'm having a lot of fun, kicking the tires and seeing what we can do.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I hate that we kind of missed it. And I don't know what's going to happen with the API multi-clause calls in the future, but I definitely think that with using the API options and the multi-clause call ability that we have, we're essentially able to interact with the chain in a parallel way, even though it's not truly parallel, but close to it, that you see in like the newer chains like Aptos and Sui, which can really mean that you can make an entire website, app, NFT project, minting, all this stuff. Like you can do that all on chain and not have any back end at all except just reading the chain. And I feel like that was an opportunity that we could have had, but just missed it. And I don't know how much that's going to change in the future with RPC change, and if they're going to still have the old API calls available or not.
Yeah, I would make the argument from a tech perspective that it is still possible. That with the sort of multi-clause transaction model and I mean, really that. Maybe not through the API. It's like I haven't fully exercised that. I've been doing most of my stuff through VeChain Energy. Using like API Relayer and stuff like that. But the that was really the initial intent, like, and is still kind of where I want to be headed, at least from a project standpoint, like the technical side of the project, getting as much data on chain and having no database and really no backend, and having a sort of headless, or not headless, but like a only the front end web app that then just interfaces with contract calls. I think it's still doable. And I haven't heard about those other tech platforms that you're talking about. So I'll have to do some Googling, but I firmly believe that it's doable on VeChain.
It's it's right now it's 100% doable. Like we could a lot of what we run for BetterSwap and other apps that we're playing with, essentially very minimally use a backend database.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that you do need on the backend database, like you could then just store in a contract pretty easily and call, to where with RPC base, you can only do one call at a time. And if you were to get the owner of an NFT collection, you would have to make 10,000 calls sequentially, and it would take 5 minutes to call all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the API that VeChain specifically has on their nodes, and multi-clause transactions where you can do multi-call functions in one call, you can get all 2,000 in 0.2 seconds instead of 5 minutes. And so, like, we, essentially build objects of what we want and then make that object call at once and change a variable here and there, and we can build everything dynamically on the user and just change the user address, everything they own, all the NFT information that we want, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. If we switch over to purely RPC, we kind of lose that. So hopefully we still have the API, or they're able to come up with a way to make it to where it's still doable in batch.
I mean, I have to imagine that, feature parity is a minimum, where it's like it is one of the key differentiators of the VeChain blockchain. So it's like, to me, there's no way you would sort of abandon one of the things that makes you unique in implementing that technology. Like, I think it'll have to be an extension of, whatever the sort of JSON RPC libraries. But, I mean, it's one that really, I mean, yeah, JSON RPC, you're just sending text over the wire. So it's not, to me, it's like, it's just an API call, just with a slightly different format. But it's a format that the blockchain ecosystem has sort of all collectively landed on. It could have been GraphQL. It could have been, I mean, there's 1,000 different things that it could have been. But JSON RPC was it. And so it's like to have nested data structures in the form of, arrays of clauses and stuff like that, to me is like, yeah, I think I would be fairly confident, at least as a developer, that will be, if not at launch, on the horizon, like the near term horizon for VeChain to implement.
Yeah, hopefully, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
I think we get that, then it's going to be, big deal. Even if it's like 90% of the people that make stuff that want to do multi-chain, cross-chain, collab stuff, if they don't use it, perfectly fine. That's cool. You don't need to. If you want
Yeah.
to be able to go to base and ETH and all this and just switch buttons and be able to do VeChain, but like there are some stuff that if you can just keep it where we can still do it, the VeChain specific folks like that know how to do it at least, like that'd be cool. Because then you don't need an indexer, you don't need all that overhead, you don't need stuff to go down, you don't have to worry about all that.
Mm-hmm.
You just pull it off from chain.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I agree completely. I think we'll call it there. We're went a little over time. I want to try and keep these, as focused as possible. Just because I don't know, we all work and we all have busy lives. So thanks to all who tuned in. Yeah, I think, unless somebody, shouts really loudly, I think we'll do probably same time next week. And yeah, keep the conversation rolling. I think, rough agenda for next week would be talking about kind of the referral program, or, give Thorhead, get Thorhead type of thing. I've dropped some hints here and there on Twitter. So if you comb through the replies, you might be able to find some, but yeah, so with that, thanks all. I'll shamelessly plug, follow on Twitter, join the Discord, do the things. I don't know, and mint some Thorhead, burn some Thor. That's part of the fun. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you all. See you all around.